There's a specific moment that people who've been through a lot will recognize immediately. You're sitting somewhere ordinary, a coffee shop, your car, the edge of your bed, and suddenly you feel it. Not pain exactly, not sadness, just this overwhelming sense of heaviness, like you've been carrying something invisible for so long that you forgot it was there until your body forced you to notice. That moment isn't weakness. It's your nervous system finally admitting what your mind has been denying. This is more than I was built to carry alone. Today we're exploring the psychology of people who've survived too much, and more importantly, how that survival reshapes everything about how you experience the world. Recalibration, how your brain adapts. Let's start with what actually happens neurologically, because understanding this isn't just academic, it's validating. When you experience prolonged stress, uncertainty, or emotional overwhelm, your brain doesn't just deal with it, it fundamentally reorganizes itself. Neuroscientists call this neural adaptation under chronic stress. 3 specific changes occur. 1. Your threat detection system goes into overdrive. Your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, becomes hypersensitive. You start picking up on microsignals that others completely miss. A slight change in someone's tone, a shift in body language, the energy in a room before anything's been said. This isn't paranoia. It's your brain doing exactly what it was trained to do: predict danger before it arrives. Do your baseline for normal shifts what others experience as crisis, you experience as Tuesday. Your nervous system has recalibrated what counts as an emergency. The threshold for what shakes you is much higher, which is why people often describe you as calm, when internally you're just operating from a different scale entirely. Your emotional processing becomes more complex. You develop what psychologists call emotional layering, the ability to feel multiple, sometimes contradictory emotions simultaneously. You can be happy and sad, hopeful and cautious, open and guarded all at once. This isn't confusion. It's sophisticated emotional intelligence born from necessity. The 5 survival patterns. Nobody explains people who've been through too much develop specific psychological patterns, not flaws patterns. Here are the 5 most common. Pattern 1, the anticipatory guard you mentally rehearse. Worst case scenario. Not because you're pessimistic, but because your brain learned that preparation equals safety. You run simulations constantly. If this fails, then I'll do that. If they leave, then I'll be okay, because this creates mental exhaustion. But it also makes you exceptionally good at crisis management. Pattern 2, the emotional minimizer. You instinctively downgrade your own pain. It wasn't that bad. Others have it worse. I'm fine, really. This isn't humility, it's a defense mechanism. If you minimize it, you don't have to fully feel it. And if you don't fully feel it, it can't overwhelm you. But this pattern has a cost. You become disconnected from your own emotional reality. Pattern 3, the hyper-independent caregiver. You're exceptional at taking care of others while being terrible at receiving care. This isn't generosity, it's control. If you're the helper, you're needed. If you're needed, you're safe. If you're safe, you won't be abandoned. The formula is unconscious but powerful. Usefulness equals worthiness equals security. Pattern 4, the permission waiter. You hesitate before joy. You question good things. You wait for the other shoe to drop even when everything's stable. This isn't negativity, it's pattern recognition. Your brain has data that suggests good moments don't last, so it protects you by refusing to fully invest in them. Pattern 5, the emotional archaeologist. You constantly analyze your own reactions, digging through layers of cause and effect. Why did I feel that way? Where did that come from? Is this a real feeling or a trauma response? You've become a detective of your own psychology, which creates insight, but also exhaustion. The misunderstood traits. Here's what people get wrong about those who've survived too much. Society sees certain behaviors and makes assumptions. Let's correct them. What they see, you're calm under pressure. What it actually is, your nervous system has a higher threshold for panic because you've normalized crisis. What they see, you're so mature. What it actually is, you were forced to develop coping mechanisms before you had the emotional infrastructure to support them. What they see, you're emotionally independent. What it actually is, You learned that depending on others was unpredictable or unsafe, so you built an entire support system inside yourself, what they see. You're hard to read what it actually is. You've learned to keep your internal weather private because sharing it historically came with consequence. What they see, you're wise beyond your years, what it actually is. Pain is a brutal but effective teacher, and you've had more lessons than most the relationship paradox. This is where the psychology gets especially complex. People who've survived too much often have contradictory relationship patterns. You crave intimacy, but fear vulnerability. Because vulnerability has historically been weaponized, dismissed, or ignored. Your brain has learned showing someone your soft spots is risky. You love deeply, but leave preemptively. Not because you don't care, but because you'd rather control the ending than be blindsided by it. If you leave first, at least you saw it coming. You're incredibly empathetic, but emotionally unavailable. You can read others like a book and hold space for their pain, but when it comes to your own, the walls go up because showing your struggle feels like admitting defeat. You want to be chosen, but don't believe you will be. So you prove your worth through service, achievement, or usefulness, anything except just existing and trusting that's enough. These aren't character flaws. They're logical conclusions based on the data your nervous system has collected. The hidden grief, there's a type of grief that people who've survived too much carry that's rarely discussed, the grief of lost innocence. Not innocence in a childish way, but the loss of certain beliefs that the world is fundamental. Safe, that people will protect you without you having to earn it, that you can be carefree without consequences, that vulnerability won't be used against you, that good things can last. Without constant vigilance, you grieve the version of yourself who believed these things, and that grief doesn't look like crying at funerals. It looks like being unable to fully relax, even when nothing's wrong, feel guilty during happy moments, like you don't deserve them, preparing exit strategies in relationships before they've even begun feeling older, and your age in ways you can't articulate. This grief is valid, and it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're honest about what you've lost. The strength that looks like weakness. Here's the paradox. The traits that make you resilient are often mistaken for fragility. You're sensitive to tone and energy. People call this being too sensitive, but it's actually a highly developed radar system. You pick up on what others miss because your survival once depended on it. You need time alone to recharge. People call this antisocial, but it's actually nervous system regulation. Your internal world is complex and active. Requires maintenance that social interaction doesn't provide. You struggle with small talk. People call this intense. But when you've lived through real darkness, surface level conversation feels like a waste of the limited energy you have for connection. You overthink interactions. People call this anxiety. But it's actually hypervigilance that hasn't been turned off because your brain hasn't received signal that the emergency is over. These aren't weaknesses, they're adaptations that made sense in the context they were formed. The invisible load, the hardest part about surviving too much, is that the effects are invisible. You can't show someone your nervous system running on high alert 24/7. You can't prove the weight of constantly managing other people's emotions while suppressing your own, so you carry it silently. And people assume you're fine because you're functioning. But here's what they don't see, the mental energy it takes to appear normal, the constant internal dialogue. Analyzing every interaction, the emotional labor of keeping everyone else comfortable, the exhaustion of being your own therapist, parent, and support system, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who don't understand the depth of what you carry. This invisible load is why rest doesn't always feel restful. You're not just physically tired, you're existentially tired. Tired of being strong, tired of managing, tired of holding everything together. The healing framework, moving from survival to living. So how do you actually heal? Not just cope, but genuinely move from surviving to living. Step one, recognize the difference between then and now. Your nervous system is still operating on old programming. The threats that trained it may no longer exist. but your body doesn't know that. Practice. When you notice hypervigilance, literally tell yourself, that was then, this is now. I am safe in this moment. Step 2, grieve what was lost. You can't heal what you won't acknowledge. Give yourself permission to be angry, sad, or disappointed about what you had to survive. This isn't dwelling, it's processing. Practice. Write letters to your younger self, acknowledging what they went through. You don't need to send them anywhere. The act of witnessing your own pain is the point. Step 3, relearn your emotional signals. Your emotions have been so tightly regulated for so long that you might not even know what you're feeling in real time. Practice set reminders throughout the day to check in. What am I feeling right now? Where do I feel it in my body? What does it need? Step 4, practice receiving without earning. Start small. Let someone buy you coffee. Accept a compliment without deflecting. Ask for help with something minor. Your nervous system needs proof that receiving doesn't require transaction. Practice once a week. Accept something without immediately reciprocating. Notice the discomfort. Sit with it. It gets easier. Step 5. Build a new normal gradually. You can't force your nervous system to relax. You have to show it repeatedly through experience that safety is real. Practice. Create consistent routines that signal safety. Same morning ritual, same evening wind down, same trusted people. Predictability helps regulate a dysregulated system. The truth about your sensitivity, let's address this directly. Your sensitivity is not a weakness to overcome. You feel deeply because you've lived deeply. You notice nuances because you had to. You carry emotional complexity because your experiences were complex. The goal isn't to become less sensitive. It's to stop apologizing for the depth that makes you who you are. Your sensitivity is why people trust you with their pain you create. Meaningful connections, you understand what's unspoken, you can hold. Space for complexity, you see beauty in small moments. Don't let a world that values numbness convince you that feeling is a flaw. Rewriting the narrative, the story you've been telling yourself might sound like, been through too much, I'm damaged, I'm too much, I'm not enough. Here's the reframe, I've survived things that would have broken others. My depth is a reflection of my journey. My caution is wisdom. My boundaries are self-respect. My sensitivity is strength. You're not too much. The world has just been too small for what you carry. The permission you've been waiting for you don't need to earn the right to rest. You don't need to prove your pain was bad enough to deserve healing. You don't need to wait until you're ready to start prioritizing yourself. You don't need permission from anyone to stop carrying what was never yours to begin with. The only permission you need is your own. The lighthouse principle people who've survived too much often become lighthouses, not because they're perfect, but because they know darkness. Your pain isn't wasted if it becomes wisdom. Your struggle isn't meaningless if it becomes compassion. Your survival isn't just endurance if it becomes transformation. You didn't choose what you went through, but you get to choose what you do with what it taught you. And maybe the most powerful choice you can make is this: to stop just surviving and start genuinely living, not performing, not proving, not perfecting, just living messy, authentic, complex, and finally free. You've carried enough. It's time to put some of it down.